Welcome, and thank you for joining us today for a Land Services SA webinar on the correction and rejection process and full and temporary withdrawals. This is a pre-recorded session with a live Q&A session at the end of this presentation. We ask you to kindly hold all your questions until the allocated time where one of our subject matter experts will be able to assist. Land Services SA's Industry Education Program covers key topics and frequently asked questions and is designed to help industry keep up to date with current practices. Our subject matter experts assist in preparing and delivering our industry education webinar series, utilising their years of experience and respected place in the industry. This webinar has been prepared by Natasha Stupel. Natasha is our Registration, Training, Audit and Workflow Officer. She has over 35 years experience in land titling and the Lands Titles Office. She has worked on a number of flagship projects such as SALIS, e-conveyancing, residual dealings, automatic registration, and most recently the alignment of paper and electronic panel forms. She is also responsible for internal registration training, requirements for new dealings for electronic release, LTO panel form updates, and the information provided on our e-conveyancing webpage. Today's webinar will cover the correction stages and process, including requirements for amending requisition dealings, the rejection of dealings, the reasons and requirements for temporary withdrawals, also known as relodgements, and the reasons and requirements for the full withdrawal of a dealing. Section 220D of the Real Property Act 1886 deals with the power of the Registrar-General to issue requisitions for unregistered dealings. There are numerous reasons why a registration officer may be required to raise a requisition. Commonly, it will be in relation to an omission in the dealing or an alteration or correction is required to the dealing, the production of documentary evidence, clarification regarding the intention of the certifier and the parties to the dealing, the requirement for an action to be performed to enable registration, such as full or temporary withdrawal, or lodgement of a required dealing, or if the correcting agent has requested the unregistered dealing be referred for correction by request. This request must be made by the correcting certifier in writing and can only occur whilst the dealing remains unregistered. For paper lodgements, the lodged original barcoded dealing will be returned to the correcting agent with the requisition slip detailing the query attached. For electronic lodgements, the rendered form is converted to paper and the barcoded requisition dealing becomes the original panel form and must be returned. An automatic email is sent to the correcting agent, notifying them of the requisition. Dealings are then delivered by either registered mail or LTO box as per the details attached to the relevant paper or electronic agent code for the correcting agent. Deliveries directed to LTO boxes are available from 11 a.m. on the day that you receive the requisition email. The header of the requisition slip relates to agent details. These are the details that are connected to either your paper lodgement agent code or your PEXA or simply agent details. To ensure that you receive your requisitions and deliveries, your agent details should be kept up to date. If you have moved premises, changed contact names, email addresses, or telephone numbers, you are responsible for notifying this office of the change for your paper agent code. Updates to your ELNO subscriber details can be made online through the relevant ELNO website. The next section of the requisition slip relates to general information regarding all requisitions. including the requirement for all amendments to be initialed by the practitioner or employee certifier. Amendments should not be initialed by any party that is not authorised to certify a dealing correct for the purposes of the Real Property Act 1886. If the amendments are not initialed, the registration officer may re-requisition the dealing. The third part of the requisition slip is the narrative written by the registration officer, describing the particular issue or query impacting the dealing. Amendments should be made by hand in blue or black ink on the original requisition barcoded dealing that was delivered by Land Services SA. Correcting agents should note that photocopies of the original dealing cannot be accepted. Pages should not be removed. They may be crossed through. However, the original panel form should remain intact. Where there is insufficient panel space to clearly make the amendment, an annexure, Form B1, may be used. Additional pages, such as consents, may be added. Where an instrument has been referred for correction, the Real Property Act 1886 allows 2 months for an instrument to be corrected by the relevant party. At the expiration of this time, a notice of intention to reject is sent to the lodging agent and all parties to the instrument, setting out that the Registrar General intends to reject the instrument. Once a further 2-month period has expired, under the provisions of Section 220E of the Act, the instrument may be rejected and all Lands Titles Office fees forfeited. If an instrument is lodged with a plan of division, the plan may also be rejected. In extenuating circumstances, the time for rejection may be extended by written request to the Registrar General. The onus is on the correcting party to ensure that a written request is made prior, that is 1 to 2 weeks, to the expiration of the 2-month period after receiving the notice of intention to reject. The written requests must be addressed to the attention of the relevant document examiner and include the reason why the requisition cannot be complied with within the time frame. This request must also indicate the anticipated date when the requisition will be complied with and the instrument returned, and should be signed by the certifier. If a written request for an extension is not received, instruments will be rejected 2 months following the date of the notice of intention to reject, without any further contact with any party. Please refer to Notice to Lodging Party number 116 and 144. Both full and temporary withdrawals, also referred to as relodgements, can only occur while the series remains unregistered. Relodgement of a dealing may be necessary when a required dealing was not included in series at the time of lodgement and is required to precede the lodged dealing. The dealings were lodged with incorrect series numbering, or the numbering was unclear, such as an encumbrance lodged in series after the mortgage. The full withdrawal of a dealing may be necessary when the registration officer advises that the dealing cannot be registered, the client has changed their intention and does not wish the dealing to be registered, the incorrect form has been used and there is the intention to lodge a replacement dealing, the dealing was referred for correction and the original dealing has been subsequently lost. A frequent inquiry received by Land Services SA is who can sign the full or temporary withdrawal request. For practitioner certifiers, this relates back to the client authorisation. Where the client authorisation for the dealing is to the firm, the signature of the practitioner certifier or another registered conveyancer or solicitor employed by the same firm. Where the client authorisation for the dealing is to an individual practitioner, then the signature of the practitioner certifier named in the client authorization is required. Where the certifier is an employee certifier, either the employee certifier themselves or another person from the same company that is authorized to certify dealings correct for the purposes of the Real Property Act. Where the party is self-represented, the signature of the individual who has certified the dealing. All dealing relodgements are to be returned through the Drop and Go chute located at Level 9, 101 Grenfell Street. Regional and interstate clients can request a relodgement via post addressed to the GPO box listed at the bottom of the requisition slip. At the time of relodgement, the correcting agent must provide the following: a letter requesting the relodgement of the dealing. This should be on the company's letterhead and is required to include the intended order of the dealings after the relodgement process. For agents acting with a client authorization, only written consent of the certifying party is required. The appropriate fees for a relodgement transaction must be included, and any new dealings, if applicable, together with the appropriate registration fee. The series will not proceed until all these requirements are met and all requisition dealings are returned. For a temporary withdrawal, it is essential that a check search is conducted to ensure that no new lodgements have been noted that will impact your relodgement and possibly require further withdrawal. For a full withdrawal, the correcting agent is required to provide a letter stating that they request the dealing to be fully withdrawn. This letter is to include the reasons for the full withdrawal request, details of who the EFT refund, if applicable, is to be paid to. For agents acting with a client authorization, written consent of the certifying party is required. The signed full withdrawal request should be returned to Land Services SA by post or in person, together with the original dealing if referred for correction. Where the original dealing has been lost and cannot be returned, confirmation of the loss should be included in the withdrawal request. Where applicable, the replacement dealing, together with the appropriate registration fee. It is important to note that the applicable withdrawal fee is deducted from the registration fees already paid on the dealing at the time of lodgement. Registration fees on a withdrawn dealing cannot be transferred to a new dealing, and due to processes beyond Land Services SA's control, the refund payment may take several weeks before it is received by the client. A downloadable, detailed list of instructions for both temporary and full withdrawals, together with a full list of consent requirements for each dealing type as regards both full and temporary withdrawals, is available on Land Services SA website. In summary, the original barcoded requisition dealing must be returned. All amendments must be initialed by the practitioner or employee certifier. Notices of intention to reject are a legislative requirement and you cannot opt out. An extension of time for the rejection of a dealing cannot be requested until 2 weeks prior to the rejection date. Temporary withdrawals cannot be processed until all requisition dealings have been returned and any new dealing has been lodged, and detailed withdrawal instructions are available on Land Services SA website. The recording of this webinar is available to watch from Land Services SA's Industry Education Hub library, where you can also find a range of educational and support materials to assist you in your day-to-day work. A PDF of the slide deck will also be available to download and print. That concludes the recorded webinar section. Thank you for listening. Please remain online for the live Q&A session with our subject matter experts.